Hello, Soldurolers, and welcome to another episode of the Soldurals podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, and it seems like I always say that I have very special guests, and the reality is because I really always have very special guests. But this guest is so special because she was the first person, together with my brother, that I interviewed when I launched Soldurals about like 4 years ago, kind of, for 3 years and a half. So I'm so excited that I'm having the opportunity to talk with Natalia. We met in San Francisco. I told her, reach out on Instagram, and I said, can I take some photos of you? I'm going to create this platform to inspire adults. And she definitely said yes. And I'm just so happy because she's also Colombian. So, que viva Colombia. And yeah, I just want to talk about her journey. What is she working on right now? She's super creative, and I'm pretty sure this conversation, as the other conversations in the podcast, are going to inspire you. So, Natalia, hello, my darling. How are you?
Hello, Lily. So happy to be here. This is gonna be like the accent field podcast episode. Super happy to be here. Yes, it's been a minute since our last talk for Soul Doodles. I hope this becomes like a tradition, every 3 years and a half we just catch up and see.
Oh my god, I hope like it's better than 3 years. I hope like it's at least every 2 months we're catching up. But I feel like in Instagram you just connect with people and then you see the stories and then you just feel part of the life of the other person. So I can see the part of like I don't need to talk to this person because I already know what she's doing, but the reality is like, come on, let's talk and catch up. But anyway, Natalia, I'm just so happy, as I mentioned before, to have you today. It was kind of a little back and forth to try to record this podcast, so I'm glad that we are doing it. And I would love for you to start sharing with our audience a little bit of your background. Where are you working right now? And yeah, how did you jump into illustration and graphic design?
All right. So I am originally from Colombia. And I work as a graphic design illustrator. A little bit of everything. I work in a startup right now. It's a mental health app it's mostly focusing community. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And also just being here as well as part of another community is pretty cool. What else? What else about me? I'm working in a personal, like kind of like personal project. I continue with my sketchbook practice. I think that's like my outlet for like everyday kind of resting. Like after work, I would just always take a minute to do some of that work. I rarely do like big format work because of the time. Like I work full time as a graphic designer, so yeah, that's what I do basically. I don't know
Which
if I gave
is
like
incredible. No, this is beautiful. And I want to go back before you even start as a graphic designer and illustrator, because you have a very interesting journey. And I think like you are the first person, and we were just chatting before connecting, that actually kind of like switch careers. So can you tell us a little bit about that discovery of, oh, I'm super creative. What am I doing with this other career? So tell us about that journey.
Yeah, all right. So well, let's go back in time.
When you were in Colombia, in the coast.
Yeah, I was born in Colombia. I was born actually in a village in Córdoba, in Colombia, sorry, called Bugre, which is like remote.
I never heard about this one.
Yeah, I know. Like, I don't think there's like electricity or water or anything. But I didn't grow up there. I grew up in Barranquilla. So I always grew up in this like two worlds, this duality of like the city and then going to the village and visiting my grandparents, and like always been in this contrast. So I always had this urge of telling my story. I remember since I was little, I was like always in all the like the performance things at school. My mom would tell me like, stop, like you cannot you cannot be going into every single like baile and stuff like at school, because we have no money to pay for all of that. So calm down. So for me, it was always like arts was always part of who I am. But I guess like it was always seen as a hobby more than a career path that I could follow. So, and because I was always in so many different things, jumping from one thing to other, my family always saw it as, okay, this is a hobby. And although I come from a family of artists, like my grandfather's brother, he paints, his son paints. There's like fashion designers and like all sorts of artists in my family, but it was never really seen like that. So I went and I studied healthcare administration and public health, and I actually work in hospitals in Colombia for about 4 years. So nothing to do with graphic design or illustration or anything, but I always ended up like, I remember when I was in the hospital, I was in the statistics department. And I would like, every time we had a presentation, I would like become like I would make this elaborate presentation with like, oh, let's add colors to these graphics, and like,
And
we should
especially, I'm guessing everyone was like delightful by your work, because healthcare, especially when it's from the government, is the worst. Like they don't invest in websites, they don't invest in graphic design. So I'm guessing everyone was like, oh my God, let's have Natalia to create all our presentations because they look amazing.
Yeah, I mean, for them was more like, what are you doing? Like, do your job. Like, and then I think like I always had it in me. Then I came here to US as an au pair. And that's, I think, again, I went back to that duality. Like, oh my goodness, like I'm from this country. I thought I had this contrast in my life, and now I see it again, right? Like in this new country, new culture, new language, new everything, new food. And I think that's when it hit me, like I need to share my story somehow. I need to go back to the way I love to express myself. And that's when I decided to go back to school when I was actually 27, and I studied graphic design, actually visual communication. And then, yeah, from there I found a job. I had the whole thing of like not really knowing what I was doing, like faking it until I thought I was gonna make it. And yeah, here I am. So
incredible. Yeah, and it connects to my story a little bit too, because I also born in a little town that is called Villeta in the beautiful Cundinamarca, and I will always travel back and forth from Bogota to Villeta and visit my grandpa, my grandma, and go and pick up the eggs and see my grandpa, milking the cows, and having this like nature always was like so key. And also coming to the US, I moved as an au pair. I also figured out that maybe marketing and communications was not my thing, and then jump into visual design. So much of similarities,
I know.
which is incredible. You never know when you can connect, with other people's life, and probably we have a lot of things in the journey that you probably experience as well. Thank you so much for walking us through that journey. I'm curious for you. Okay, so you jump into visual design and you say like fake it until you make it. Until when you found that you really knew what you were doing, especially in graphic design or visual design?
I don't think I ever gotten there. I think we're always learning, and it's that realization. Is the realization of you it doesn't matter where you are, like in what point in your path, in your journey you are, you always have something to learn. So realizing that and always being aware of like, yeah, I know I don't know it all, and being comfortable with that. I think that's where I am right now. I'm like, well, yeah, I definitely don't know a lot of things. You find me like many times in meetings and stuff when there are like some acronyms thrown here and there. I'm like, what is that? So I'm Googling on the side and I'm like, I'm learning. And I think it's, yeah, that's the point where you just need to be comfortable with that uncomfortable feeling. And yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what I realized, I guess.
And I mentioned this in the last podcast that we just launched on Sunday, that you are experience the growth mindset, no a fixed mindset when you think like what you know is what it is. Instead, it's like, I don't know anything. Let me just continue learning because I don't know what is this specific word that they're talking about business, or I don't know what is this specific part of like the product design part. So which is incredible. Okay, so you say that you have the sketch practice and you're still doing that. When in the journey you start having the Posca markers and your, little notebooks everywhere around, like when in that transition of like being an au pair and like trying to figure out if you want to jump into visual design, when that happened? Because I feel like that was the one that kind of like connect with your inner child that you always love to create.
Totally. I think I always had like something to take notes. Like I feel like my sketchbooks, what I show is only like the pages where I actually draw something, but it's the same sketchbook that I used to make my grocery list and like write some numbers down, or if I'm on the phone and I need to write something, that's where I do it. There is not much separation. Actually, now that I have nicer sketchbooks, I'm like, okay, let's separate it with like I have another one where I take notes. But before it was always like that. It was like I always liked writing my thoughts and like sketching on top of my words if I felt like maybe I don't feel comfortable now like continuing writing, so I would sketch something on top of the letters and stuff. So I always had that. Even when I was like I still have my mom still reads them. I'm like, Mom, what is this? She's like, oh, I read your notebook from like 2003, and I'm like, Mom, like, what are you doing? So those still exist. But yes, sketchbook as a practice and like nicer things. I think that was here in the US. And I was just, yeah, like you say, I think it's that curiosity, right? Like you cannot stop. It's not even an option. I don't think for us creators is an option of like, okay, today I'm not gonna think about creating it. It's like you're always, 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 always thinking about it. And well, except, and I would like to share that later, but when I decided to kind of like take it like and actually like do it as a practice every day, that was kind of the same time when I decided to open my Instagram account. So that's when I was like, okay, I may need like a marker. So then I saw the Posca markers because I saw like someone that I follow at the time, they were like using a lot of Posca markers. So I was like, yeah, they look cool. So I started using them. I kind of now I'm more like experimenting with a little bit of everything. So yeah, that's how everything started. But yeah, it's been a journey as well with the with the sketchbooks.
Yeah. Oh my God. I remember the photos that I took of you, and my favorite is still the sardine.
I love them. They're
So
still
cute.
my LinkedIn profile. So thank you
Really?
for giving like
No, I
professional.
love the sardines. Everything that you have in that sketchbook was so beautiful. I love that you touched the part of creating a practice every day, but also it's very interesting that you decide to open your Instagram and start like seeing what other people are doing and kind of like, I'm guessing, just start sharing your work too, or it was more like looking for inspiration?
I think it was both. I was
Mm,
looking for connect, and I think I shared this
mm,
with you before
yeah,
we started. I've been in the search of like finding people that I connect with in
mm,
the level of that I might not really share with a lot of these people that I follow, because we all have different journeys, even when we
totally.
come from country. We share, but when I find people that kind of share similar background, even when they're from different countries, I find like it's so inspiring to me. So I'm always in that search. I'm always like looking for people, Instagram is kind of like my go-to. And I'm always there, like finding inspiration and just seeing what others are doing. I think it's a free museum.
Literally,
and
and like from different techniques too, which is super cool. Because in
yeah.
museum, the person who create the art has just a specific one. But Instagram and just in general, Pinterest, it's a open space that you never thought you will see that, and you're like, oh my god, that is actually super cool. I want to start doing it. Why not?
Yeah.
Incredible. So now that we know your journey and your sketch practice, I would love to jump into something that we all creative struggle, and is about creative block. For the past 3 months, in my case, I've been very blocked, and I think it's because there's a lot of things going on at work and personal life. Have you experienced creative block? And when you have experienced that, what has been your way of kind of like, I don't want to be in this creative block, I need to create something? What is like that tip from your side?
Lily, you are like, we're living parallel lives, literally. I'm experiencing a creative block right now, actually.
Oh my God.
I'm going through it, and it's funny because like I've been really worried. For me, the way it manifests is like when I show up to my practice in whatever medium that I work on. Right, like I knit, I sew, I create my own patterns for sewing. I paint, I sketch. I try to always keep that like going all the time. And then one day I show up and it's gone. And it's scary because you want to do this thing that you have in your mind and you start doing it, and it's like, no, that's not it. And you keep going and it's like, no, that's not it. And then you keep going and it's like, no, that's not it. And for me, it starts becoming like a foreign thing. Like
Yeah, do I
I don't
really know how to
know.
illustrate? Do I really
No,
know how to sketch? Yeah,
yeah.
I can relate.
Have you ever like when you started like learning English, and like you heard this word and you're like, yes, I got the word. I have it. Like I never forget this word. And then when you have to use it, you're like, oh,
What was the word? Yeah,
I
it
thought it
happened.
was so
Until this day,
clear.
until this day. Now the worst part is I also forget Spanish words. So now I don't even speak English or Spanish, which is worse.
I know, I know. When my parents are around, I'm like, what am I doing? Because I
I
try to
know.
talk to them and how do you say this thing? I'm like, no, 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 no. Seriously? Like, well, but yeah, it feels like that to me
Yeah.
when I'm it feels like I show up, I grab a pencil, I grab
Mm.
a brush, and it's like, what was I gonna do? How was it that what was the thing? And then I start like looking back in my sketchbooks and like
Yeah.
trying to remember how was it that it's so strange. I don't know if there's anyone out there that has
Yeah, no,
experiences, but like I
100%.
start seeing like what I did before and it feels like a disconnection. I'm like, who did this? That wasn't me. Like I don't remember doing this. It's so weird.
So
Um
interesting. But
yeah.
I have to say, and I am the outsider, the one that looks at your work. I have been always seeing that you get very inspired by the scene. You are kind of like Monet. You go to friends and you like create different landscapes, and nature is important to you. Like I feel like you always go back to nature, and I have been following your work is always like nature is involved. So maybe you're just changing the technique, which is totally fine too. But I think like it still is the same, just look
Mm.
different.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, totally. And I feel like that's and it goes back to that creative block again. It's like I feel like I'm so I'm all about feeling. I'm 100% feelings, and
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people that are more like a client needs this, so I'm going to deliver all the requirements, and I think that's beautiful and amazing. I applaud all this, but I'm like, I need to feel this, and I need to put that in my work, and it needs to show like what I felt that my client wanted to say. So I'm always about feeling. So when I came to realize that you are not just this person like illustrating or doing graphic design or designing or anything that you do in the creative world, is like you're also affected by all the things that are outside of your work. And like you say, like you might be going through a lot of things in your personal life, and that affects us, that blocks us, because that's
So
literally
much.
what is it, like defense mechanism.
Yeah.
I didn't know about this. Like you're just protecting yourself to survive.
Mm.
That's a very like ¿cómo se dice? You see?
This is what we
uh,
Spanish speakers experience. Yeah,
there you go.
you are so right.
No,
Like with my ex-boyfriend, he was my muse. Like I would love to just doodle his mustache and his crazy hair and the goggles, and he was my muse of inspiration. And now that I don't have him, when I create somebody that has a mustache, I'm like, oh my God, thinking about, what I was creating before. So I can definitely relate with you. Like everything connects, and it's very hard to separate because we are spiritual, we are personal, professional. It will be really nice to be in a world that you can know, like that you can separate. Today I'm professional. This is my mindset. But no, the reality is like things that come to your day and affect you, it literally affect what you are going to produce at work too. And it's part of being
totally.
humans. I think like that is what is going to keep us separate from robots and AI in the future, unless they are very well trained and then became just like us, which is very scary, but that is a different conversation. But okay, so right now you're experiencing the creative block, and I keep seeing you still create. What is the feeling that you have after creating? Is it more like, okay, I create just because I need to create, or is just, wow, I create and I feel okay in my soul, like a meditation?
Yeah, for me, it's like I'm finally releasing this thing that is like click, 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 knocking, knocking, and knocking, and it doesn't stop knocking in my head. It's like, you see, like, I don't know, for me, it's colors and like you say, nature and woman. I love like figure, but like woman. I love it. I think it's like the way. So every time I see like an expression on someone, or I see a color in when we go camping, or I don't know, like something, it stays, and I'm like, I need to create that, I need to like do something about that. What should I do? So it's always there until I do it. Then that's like, okay, doesn't look like I thought it was gonna look, but finally, like I put it on paper, I put it somewhere, it's out there, it's out. I did it. I listened to that voice that was like telling me to create. So yeah, that's the way. And I don't think I answered your question about like how I come out of creative blog,
Yeah,
which
no,
I
but we're
am right
having a really good conversation. Tell us.
yeah, I know, but it goes back again to the what I was saying at the beginning. It's kind of like um accepting that comes and that also goes, and taking the
Yes.
time to, I think, I know we heard a lot of times, like, we need to rest, but like how much rest do you need? It's tricky to navigate that, right? Like,
Yeah, it's like, am I
I'm
supposed to be
resting.
sleeping the whole day today? Yeah.
Yeah, how much rest is too much rest? Like for some people might be like, no, the whole weekend for me. But I feel like it's important to know when to push yourself. because you have to. You have to push yourself a little bit.
Yes.
And I know it's very uncomfortable, but you have to. And put yourself in uncomfortable situations. That's the only way you will pass that. But you also need to know it's a very fine line, right? Like, don't put yourself out there when you're feeling absolutely down and not with no desire to do anything, because you would go even a little bit deeper than what you were right now.
Yeah, because you see your work and you're like, oh my God, this literally sucks.
Yeah, and you might not produce what you feel it's kind of like gonna propel you out of that state. But I do think that you need to put yourself in uncomfortable situations when you're feeling like a little bit up. You're like, okay, this is the moment. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna accept this offer that I thought I was not ready to do it 2 weeks ago. I'm gonna do this interview that I've been
pushing for a year. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And actually just happened on my way here to Mexico. I have my tablet and I was like, okay, I need to doodle. This is perfect. I'm going to doodle. And then I start like doing just one line and doing shape of faces. And then from there, I ended up doing animals, but like very doodle, scrappy, nothing defined. And then I ended up with kind of like a desert with flowers and cactus, and I kind of was super happy. So today I was like, actually want to show that I was sketching for all of these. Like I started with these like faces, and then from there I went to animals, and now this is the landscape of like a desert with flowers and cactus. So it was like today when I look at it, I was like, wow, this is super cool. When I was doing it in the plane, I was like, oh, whatever, this is just, I'm just warming up, it doesn't matter. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. And actually Mauro Gatti, who I interviewed just a few podcasts before, he was saying that you have to still push yourself to do what you need to do, because inspiration, if we wait for inspiration, then it will never appear, because there's so many things that we have nowadays in our minds. There is a lot of pressure in different parts as well. So like inspiration, of course, I think like we all have grown the concept of inspiration. We think like inspiration is when you are in front of a mountain, that you feel connected to yourself. I like all these amazing ideas come, but the reality is like actual inspiration come when you are having the worst time. And that's what I learned today in my meditation time, that obstacles are also part of the path and they're there to help us grow. So like seeing it in that perspective connects definitely with what you were sharing, and I'm sure this is going to inspire a lot of people too. Okay, the time goes super fast, as you know, and I promise always that the conversations are just so like conversation just with a friend. I would love to hear tip from you, from these people who are maybe kind of in the same journey as you. You didn't come from the artistic background, but your inner child was always shining everywhere with different parts. And now you're actually creating art and working from that. Like, what will be that tip for them?
I think the biggest thing is feel comfortable with the uncomfortable. It is going to be very uncomfortable. And especially if you decide to put yourself out there when you don't feel like you're ready. I think for all of us, I don't think we are ever ready. Do you feel ready every day?
Never, no, never. It's so funny because, you know, in social media, you present yourself and then people see like, oh my God, this is just the perfect person. But the reality is like, no, and that is why I always try to share, like, I'm actually feeling like terrible today. And I cannot, so I'm trying to be more honest with my feelings, because yeah, a shiny glass always look in social media. But yeah, like you never feel ready. I agree.
Yeah. And I love to see that from you. Like you're so open, and I love to see like how you share like not only your story but other people's stories. I think that's beautiful. I was telling you this before as well. Like I don't really feel that comfortable sharing like too much of my of anything. Like and I think that's part of like why I also share like my sketchbooks and stuff, because I'm like, I think this is a more raw way of not showing up too much, showing off, is it? Showing off.
Yeah, showing
too much.
off. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, it's like, it's not a trait that I grew up like being like embracing. And I think that's another thing. It's like, I'm working on that. It's like,
yeah,
you know, be proud of what you know, and also be always humble of knowing that you don't know all the answers, and be okay by asking questions, and never stop being curious. And you know, there's always, people always want to share what they know, and if you ask the right questions, you will get the answers. And not that like asking them awkwardly or in a different way would not get you the answers, but just ask questions. You always find people that will take your hand and take you to where you need to go. And if you don't, you
will find
on,
another one.
yeah, you will find it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
don't
true. It's so
get
true.
discouraged. Yeah, don't get discouraged by like one person telling you like, I'm sorry, like, why are you asking this? You're supposed to know this because you're like a senior designer. What are you doing? Don't get discouraged by that. It's like, it's normal. Everyone is in the same boat, I think. I hope.
Totally. Yeah, no. I love these tips. I do, before we finish the conversation, want to talk about your craft out loud, because I love everything that you create by hand. I would love to hear where is this inspiration coming from, why you decide to create, you know, your own clothes and everything. Like, why? I'm just curious.
You know, I'm always, I love like seeing textures, and I think that's why like I paint with markers and pastels and pencils and color pencils and markers, everything. Like, I just love seeing the texture of things. So fabric is, it's just, I love it. It's like, yeah. So when I see a pattern or something in like the way the seams are made, or when you iron something and then you sew it, I just like that feeling. And I think it also kind of brings like everything is connected. I at some point I want to kind of put everything together, illustration, fabrics, and threads and yarn and all of this, because I feel like that's kind of like my next step, but I'm still warming up to it.
You're exploring.
Exactly, I'm impatient with that. See, I'm applying my own my own advice.
Yeah.
So yeah, creating my own clothes, I think it's it comes like I'm always been passionate about, like, my grandma used to make clothes, and my aunt also creates clothes, and I was raised like with, you know, you have one pair of jeans for the whole year and that's it. And I still do that. I don't buy a lot of things, so now it became like trendy, like slow fashion. But for me, I live slow fashion.
You have been a slow fashion forever. Which is amazing, the most sustainable way.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, it's like, well, you know, if I can make it, why not? I'm gonna learn something. I'm gonna learn how it's constructed. It's extremely hard. I admire all this interest, and everyone that works with fabrics is. I would not call myself how do you say, like, sewer? I would not say that. I'm experimenting. I admire it. I would love to integrate in my practice. I'm very much a beginner in that sense, because I've seen like what people do. It's incredible.
I think Natalia, and for the ones who are listening to us right now, she's just very humble, because she has been creating amazing kimonos, amazing little bags. They just look incredible. So I think you are amazing and you're doing an incredible job. So if you needed to listen to it, I'm saying it. Incredible. And how does it make you feel? Like, you feel happy every time you put some time
Totally. I mean, for me, like after I finish my job, that also requires a lot of creative thinking. Um, I feel like sewing, and like especially like after the first kind of the first part, which is the hardest for me, like actually doing all the calculations for the measurements and numbers. Whew, that's super hard for me. After that part for me becomes like just like finally I can flow, I can let all this energy from the day kind of come through and find a space for myself. There is no rush. There is no, yeah, that's what I feel like. There is no rush. There is no, it brings me back to the now, which is, it's a beautiful
Wow.
feeling.
Wow. Amazing. I think like we couldn't finish the podcast in a better way with just that. It reminds me to the power of now, which we all struggle because we're always thinking, you know, if I don't go to Instagram right now, I'm missing out everything. Like FOMO is for real and definitely put us in this emergency mindset, which is terrible. So yeah, I love what you say. Okay, this conversation was incredible. I feel like I need to bring you to another episode so we can talk about illustration in startups, which I think is super cool too. But what will be the final advice that you will give to our soldiers community and also your community that has been following you for a long time now?
Yeah, I think you just said it. Take some time off from social media if you can, and things things are slow to create. I love the like Instagram is because I can share like what I do real quick in my sketchbook. But you don't, if you like big formats or something huge, take the time to do it because it does it doesn't, it never feels like it's gonna be the right moment. So just take the time and start somewhere because you that feeling is not gonna go away. You need to listen to that instinct. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Natalia. This was incredible. And I'm just so happy that we finally got the chance to talk. And yeah, I appreciate you so, so much.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you so much.
And thanks everyone who just stick around until the end of the podcast. I know we always go from different places, but I'm pretty sure these conversations are going to continue to inspire you. Share it with your friends and let us know what you thought about the conversation with Natalia today. Gracias.
Gracias, Lily.